Hello guys, welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving on to today's first story. I work with a federal contractor responsible to buy or bundle hardware, software, etc. any government organization needs and review the contract in terms of financial viability and legal clauses. In other words, ensure we make money and are legally covered. The contracts range from $5,000 to $40 million. Last year, our company went through a reorganization, that is, fired people and give more work to people still left with the company while paying us peanuts. We are a small company with less than 200 employees and trying to retain our government customers, while big companies like Amazon Cloud will replace us in less than 10 years. The government customers love working with us because this is the only thing we do and treat the customers better than big contractors who don't care. They laid off 30 people from my team of 50, so now 20 people do the work for 50 people at the same salary. We are paid by the month and not by work hours, and we don't get sales bonuses. I have a habit of reviewing everything carefully and spending hours on each contract, even one that just makes us a few $1,000s. Government vendor selection process is slow and they are very risk-averse, so a lot of customers start at a few $1,000s and end up in an 8 or 9-figure contract if everything goes well. Since people were laid off, I was struggling with the work volume, and as a result, contracts were piling up. The sales director, that is different team, did not like me as I was slow and also catching any tricks the sales team tried to play by over-promising the customer or something shady. Government clients, customers loved working with me, the support I provided, and was truthful regarding our capability and our drawbacks. This was something else the director hated me for, since he thought I am tanking sales. However, almost all my clients were repeat customers for over a decade. Example, sales wanted a school district to buy outdated Dell Windows laptops while the entire state was moving towards new cheaper Chromebooks. Schools don't have a budget and whatever they buy stays for 5+ years. Sales were offloading expensive useless stuff to get better bonuses and also charging customers nearly $1 million to provide IT support for faults arising from ancient hardware. During my conversation with the school district, I shared examples of state governments in the Northeast buying Chromebooks and saving money while future-proofing the hardware. My job was to get the best quote to the customer and develop trust to sign a 5 or 10-year contract. So, this school district bought Chromebooks which were 40% cheaper and had less than 20% of the previously quoted IT support costs. As a result, the sales team lost a few $1,000 sign in bonus, but we brought this customer with us for a 5-year contract. The sales director got pissed as I was working on small contracts at a slow pace and reprimanded me in front of our manager. The manager did not care and did not defend me and asked, "Why don't you follow what the sales director says and stop fussing over small contracts?" I said small contracts turn into big ones, hence I should pay attention to them as well. Mistakes in small contracts could harm us if the contract becomes big. I am struggling at work because you gave me the job of 3 or 4 people. At this point he was shouting at me that I don't understand contracts. He has been doing this stuff for 5 years, and he makes more money in a month than I do in a year, so I should listen to him and not question him. This was a bit insulting as I live in a shared apartment and am struggling to make ends meet, while he drives an expensive luxury car and just goes out on fancy lunches with government employees. I asked the sales director to send an email with a list of suggestions to improve my work. He rudely complied and said, "Can you not even remember what I just said in the meeting?" His email said, "Do not review contracts less than $100,000 and trust sales team that due diligence has been done." I replied by copying my manager in the email that this could create liability in the future, and want him to confirm again that the sales team will do financial and legal compliance themselves for the small contracts. And I need to stop revising small government contracts below $100,000 with no exceptions unless told otherwise. This was gold. Cue malicious compliance. Instead of 2 hours, I spent 10 minutes on small contracts, and voila, backlog cleared, and I am home by 6:30 p.m. Now, a contract worth $10,000 comes through, and I found some issues with this contract since it said that we offer 30% rebates to our software providers. This was something we stopped doing 5 years ago, and now we just offer software providers a 5 to 10% rebate on contracts. Also, I knew the government client recently got a massive budget and was on a spending spree. There is a high chance that this $10,000 customer will become a $100 million, and the 30% rebate means we have to give $30 million on top of the usual cost. But I remembered what the sales director said. Why don't you follow what the sales director says and stop fussing over small contracts? So 10 minutes later I email no issues detected based on compliance check by the sales team. As I mentioned, government contracts are slow. No one cared. Raised the 30% rebate issue since it was just a $10,000 customer. 10 months later, the state government customer said they want to work with us and get at least the same terms or better terms for a new $50 million contract. This was the largest contract in our company's history. The sales director happily gave him a handshake deal that we will offer the same or better terms. Government can legally just buy more on their current contract, so the sales director had no issues promising the same terms. Given the contract size, everyone from legal, IT, and finance gets involved to work on just one contract. For 3 months everyone worked on one contract. The sales team was giddy that they will get million-dollar bonuses. I don't get a sales bonus to ensure I protect customers in the company. The finance team finishes their review and said the company is going to lose $8 million and not make any money. Everyone is shocked. The sales director gave a deal without checking with us, and we cannot go back on something we offer. Changing contract terms is frowned upon by the government, and they have legal contracts stating nothing will change. We are legally obligated to offer the government the same terms for 3 years. The legal team says we need to take a hit on our balance sheet and swallow the losses. The CEO called a big meeting in a fancy conference room with big TV screens, and everyone had to find a scapegoat to take the blame. Every department lead, manager, and person involved in this contract was summoned. The sales leader had to explain to his team why they won't get bonuses on this big contract. They spent over 3 months. Finally, legal and finance meet and share their findings. We lost money due to the 30% rebate clause. The sales director goes crazy and blamed me in front of everyone and asked me to pack my stuff in front of 30 people. Follows by saying I am terrible at my job despite 100% customer satisfaction. I calmly opened my laptop and connected the display cable and opened Outlook while displaying his email on 3 big TV screens stating that I should stop reviewing small contracts. While all 30 people read the email with faint smiles, I await the sales director's reaction. He goes into rage mode, claiming I misunderstood his email and am terrible at my job. Then I scroll down where he ignored my warning regarding potential liability to the company, and his response explicitly asked me to ignore that. His face turned white when he realized he had ducked up. He then blabbered, trying to find some other scapegoat, making racist tirades against our IT consultants in Vietnam, and just lost it. Aftermath. I was told to spend 2 to 3 hours on each contract, and the company eventually figured out that it is cheaper for them to hire 20 people like me and pay us $70,000 every year than to take big losses on their contracts. Our team has 40 members now, still less than 50 but enough to offset the contract volume. Because of the losses, sales director had to pay back his previous year's bonus, as he had a clawback clause with the company, that is, if you screw up you need to pay us. The sales director had to pay nearly $300,000 and was fired from his job. Present day. He then sued our company for wrongful termination, and we just heard today that he lost the case and now owes us another $200,000 legal fee. Now he owes over $500,000 to our company. Update 1. A lot of people may ask, why am I still doing this job which pays less than state wages, and I might be able to make more in other companies? I help government customers buy good stuff from many hardware and software companies so they don't overpay or rely on one big company. I feel proud when I can save tax dollars and help customers. During COVID, a lot of state governments went remote, that is, local meetings on Zoom and keeping the government running while working from home. There was a budget freeze due to COVID, the economy shutting down, and since COVID relief bill was months away. This was a time when the sales team had helpless government customers willing to sign anything just to get remote hardware and software. I saw this as extortion, and despite being an introvert who lacks initiative to get promoted, I was able to convince the CEO to offer free 60-day trials of expensive hardware and just charge setup and transportation fees. This was a big risk, but we brought an insurance company to offset any damages. I convinced the CEO that this is the time for us to show we are partners with the government and it was an emergency. The sales team was mad for a month, then realized that all those free customers were calling us for paid contracts over companies that are 10 times our size that would usually win contracts by lobbying or taking government decision makers to expensive lunch or something like Super Bowl tickets. I legally cannot disclose the exact government entity by name, but can vaguely say that some entities in the state government of New York and the state government of Florida were both using this trial program during the first wave of COVID. I might change jobs soon since we got a 3% salary hike in the current market while the company has nearly doubled its revenue in a few years. Final update. I just remembered another story that made sales leaders hate me even more. This is during the COVID wave when we all were working from home and I was getting used to Zoom. We had a telecom contract with the state government during COVID and everyone joined a Zoom call to discuss the contract. The sales team was increasing this customer's telecom bills from $60,000 a month to $300,000 a month. I objected that increased calls during COVID are not high enough to justify such a big price hike and we should increase the bill to $100,000 a month. This was enough to cover the cost and even improve profit margin percentage. But the sales team started laughing and saying if the customer can pay more and is ready to pay more, why am I being so vocal? Leadership asked me to shut my mouth and proceeded with a $300,000 contract, so I started working on other stuff and minimized the Zoom app. I don't end Zoom calls myself as the meeting admin ends it. Everyone said bye, nice meeting you all, and I naively assumed the call ended. I vented my frustration by saying these salespeople are like wolves when the country is going through shitty times. A co-worker sent a chat message a few minutes later that everyone heard what I just said. No one complained or confronted me, but this offended them. Also wanted to add, all sales team members are not like this. Almost all the new sales reps are eager to learn from everyone and not push stuff but talk to customers. However, new sales reps mostly handle small or low priority contracts. Any big contract gets automatically transferred to sales leadership. Now, here is the end of our first story, and I hope you enjoyed this malicious compliance story. In my opinion, the boss messed up with the wrong employee, and he must have regretted his decision later. Guys, I want to know your thought about this story in the comments section, and if you had similar entitled boss stories, please share it in the comments section. And, before you move to the next story, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to remain updated on more fantastic stories. Now, moving on to our final story. I thought about this one today and it made me smile, so I thought I'd share. My first job out of high school was a big deal for me. It was a simple data entry job that I took very seriously. I started moving up very quickly. With so many young entry-level employees, the turnaround was high, and I guess sticking around made me stand out. I was soaring in that company. Before I knew it, I was a supervisor of a team. In the department I was in, there was only one other supervisor. We worked very well together and agreed on almost everything. The two of us made a full training for our department, a department policy sheet, and conducted all direct employee contact. Our department was doing so well that our manager was recruited by another department for a much more lucrative role in the company. The new manager was the nicest man alive, but as an outside hire, he didn't know anything about how we ran things. At the same time as he was getting acquainted with us, the other supervisor went on maternity leave. I was the only lead in the department left that knew what they were doing. It sounds rough, but I blossomed under these circumstances. I helped find our new acting supervisor, whom I'll call Trevor. I went into all meetings with my manager to take notes and help him understand what we were discussing. I hired all the new staff members, from talking to the recruiter, conducting the interviews, and making the call to offer the position. I was running the show and I loved it. Our new manager was not grasping things and told me he was thinking about leaving. I was sad to see him go. He then told me that he thought he would ask them to have me backfill his position. This would have been the opportunity of a lifetime. A week later, my manager told me that he talked to the director, but the position wasn't going to me. It was going to the acting supervisor, Trevor. Apparently, this guy had been schmoozing while I had been working. I hadn't even been paying attention to him. Trevor had become buddy-buddy with the director by spending all his time in his office and going drinking with him at the driving range. I was heartbroken. I wasn't aiming for the job until my boss suggested it to me. I had gotten my hopes up only to be crushed. I tried to shake it off and get back to work. I oversaw department projects. I had one that required thousands of entries on an Excel sheet. I assigned our staff to the project and did my share. At the end of the day, I had gotten the sheets back from everyone directly under me, but nobody on Trevor's team had emailed me theirs. I went to one of their desks and asked about the project. The person I asked shyly told me that Trevor told her not to do it. When I asked her why he would say that, she told me that he said I wasn't her boss. I was shocked. This is how we had done every project since we opened the department. What was he thinking telling people not to do it? I could explain the small ways that Trevor constantly was trying to undermine me, or the almost jealous behavior he displayed toward me. But this story is long enough. I'll just say, while shocking, it wasn't out of character for him. I had always been able to keep him from causing damage in the past, and this didn't need to be any different. Then I realized what a golden opportunity this was. I decided to maliciously comply. I just nodded and thanked her for her help. The next day, the director called the manager and supervisors into his office. He asked me why the project wasn't completed the day before. I shrugged and told him I had sent it out to the team like I always do, and had even done a chunk of it myself. I looked at Trevor. The look he gave me. He was pale and looked at me as if I was about to sentence him to death. When Trevor eventually tried to explain that he told the staff under him not to do it, the director asked everyone but Trevor to leave. The project had been related to payroll and Trevor had royally screwed over the payroll staff. Our director was livid. He was in there for over an hour. I heard the director raise his voice more than once, which was wild. The doors and office walls were glass, so when I passed the office a bit later, I saw Trevor with his head down while our director was shaking his head and moving his hands in a very animated manner. A week later, the other supervisor returned, and Trevor was asked to return to his old position under her. I was offered the position of manager soon after, which I gladly accepted. Now, here is the end of our today's video, and I hope you enjoyed this completion video of malicious compliance. And before you guys leave, I want to hear your thought about this story in the comments section, and you can also share your similar experience with such bosses. Also, before you leave, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to remain updated on more fantastic stories.